Zords are the Rangers' home away from home. They probably spend more time in the Zords, repairing the Zords, than doing stuff at their actual homes. They're the lifeline of the team. I've loved a lot of the cockpits over the years, but some of them are very plain. I mean, were they designed by Leela? What makes this worse, the camera's static. They don't show different angles much. They barely ever show the front. So we're staring at the Rangers and what's behind them all the time. If the cockpit's really plain, I get tired of it fast. Worse when they recycle footage. Other times you see they have some really cool controls, but they're behind a wall, a console. That's what gets on my nerves. Limited time, limited budget, they can't show stuff off. Thank you, Terrence Hall, for the topic. If you have suggestions on a future video you would like me to do, leave a comment below. And thanks to everyone who pointed out I had done the topic before, so I changed it to worst cockpits. I've done 120 videos now. I'm bound to forget episodes. Keep pointing out my screw-ups.
Wild Force Megazord.
If I was in the Wild Force Zords, I'd feel cramped. There's barely enough room to move around and get to your controls. The set itself is not all that interesting, kind of like a rock texture wall with circular lights. I think the lights were also reused from Time Force's Zords and Lightspeed. The Crystal Saber stations were okay. They controlled them by thought, but with the room being so small, they don't get to move around. That's what I liked about the Jungle Fury Zords. They were just a few lights and smoke, but the Rangers could do all the actions that the Megazord did. The cockpit got better when they added Soulbird. Maybe that's why the original version didn't have that much detail, but we rarely ever got to see those controls. At least they can get out fast if the Zords were taken down. It's just a really muted cockpit.
Galaxy Megazord.
Talk about minimalistic. Being simple could be good, but Lost Galaxy went, I think, too far. There's no group cockpit, the wall is just a zigzag. The trans dagger connects into the circular podium and it slowly rotates, while the Rangers control the Zords just standing there. I notice a lot of the Zord cockpits don't feature controls. Everything's done by gestures or mind link. Even when they use the Lights of Orion, the only thing that changes are the Rangers, and the podium becomes solid. The low lighting try to help in making it more interesting, but still a very underwhelming cockpit. I don't think they ever show the window once.
Time Force Megazord.
Till this day, I think a lot of the designs from Time Force stands up. They still feel futuristic enough, while older seasons that use cell phones, they show their age. I still like the Mystic Force Morphers, but you know it came out in 2006. It annoys me that the Megazord cockpit was lackluster. It's filled with business, lots of circuitry in the front, but it's very plain. The individual Zords cockpit are better than the Megazord cockpit. They have controls, they have windows. I wish they had just used them. The window even allowed them to move to the side, so they shot a few different angles and close-ups. This is the perfect example where having them separated would have been better.
Dino Zords.
I've really never liked the Dino Zord cockpits on MMPR. For a season that emphasized the power coins as much as they did, we never saw anything. What's worse, Ranger did have some control shots in early episodes. MMPR never used them. The sets were very small. So small you could easily see them redressing Red's cockpit whenever they did camera shakes. It's one of those things the 2017 movie improved on. They kept the basic egg idea from the show, but were able to cram in a lot of stuff visually. The dumbest part was the single moment of Tommy being in his cockpit. They go out of their way to design the door logo and light covers for only this one moment. Tommy/Burai should have been in the cockpit more often. The dagger could have acted like a joystick too.
Ninja Storm Zords.
Ninja Storm suffered from the same problems as MMPR, and it was caused by the team wanting Hurricaneger to reference Ranger. There were a lot of elements taken from Ranger. Both seasons came out in their respective decades, 1992 and 2002. I guess that's why they wanted to do it, or maybe the writers were fans of Ranger, but they also followed the cockpit designs. The group ones being good, the solo ones being bad. They follow the same principles: door logo of the Ranger, light color changes, metals that can be removed and used in the cockpits. Hurricaneger put way more work into the cockpit, but falls flat because the camera barely shows it. All we ever see is the metal insert slot, which is why I like the Thunder Team's cockpit. They have bigger controls, show actual movement when they're doing stuff, plus the side scope feature.
Kyoryuzin.
This is the Sentai version of Dino Charge's cockpit. While I wasn't fond of the US one, they just reused the Samurai cockpit, the Japanese one didn't fare any better. I don't have a problem with Spirit type cockpits like the Mystic Force chessboard and the Jungle Fury martial arts one, but all it was a black background and a yellow floor. Very contrasting colors. Then you have the Rangers on a platform which limits what they can do. You really can't do fight moves with the revolver port on the right side, that back design, and the Rangers on either side. So they're stuck pretty much in a spot. It's made worse since they have to make sure to not expose how the back wall artwork is in the set. Spark explosions and internal damage are restricted so shadows can't be cast the wrong way.
Gosei Great Megazord.
The box and gold cockpit. This was a super bland one. It's well lit and white, but all it feels like is an Apple product. Whenever it changes modes, not much is done with the exception of Gosei Ground Megazord, with Robo Knight added to the back wall and the yellow tint change on the lighting. The stations are pretty generic, airplane-like controls and not much else. I wish they had put side controls where the giant wall lights were. The only time we really see the controls is when they insert cards. The cockpit is very similar to Lightspeed Rail Rescues, but those are more dynamic. The lighting gives depth. They also have the grip handle, which is used to control functions. Even the DriveMax cockpit is better. They have their control drivers, which forces them to film the control panel since it's a toy sold by Bandai. Maybe that's what the cockpits need. Sell a toy of the controls so they're forced to show it. US fans would also be confused as to why the cockpit had wings on the front since all of the Angel stuff was cut out from Goseiger.
Ninja Steel Megazord.
Ninja Steel sadly has to bear another failure to me, and it's not because it's another recycle of the Samurai cockpit for the third time. It's because of the lack of quality control. It was cool that they put the effort to change the back walls graphic to show what mode the Megazord was in, but there was a really bad seam visible during shots. You could see where the walls separated to give access. It showed off how cheap the logo looked and made the set overall fake. It would have been better to have stuck with the Dino Charge way of just using the Zord logos. I also wish they would get rid of the standing column stations. How many times do we need that?
Thunder Megazord.
You might think it's unfair that I'm picking on this cockpit. It was 1994, MMPR's first time doing their own Megazord, and the TV version of it is better than the original blue version they had, but it was way too cheap looking. The thing is, this was the height of MMPR. They were making that money, but the sets didn't show it. I would have hoped they had spent the money so they try to be closer to Sentai's quality. They just didn't. What's worse, they didn't film all that much footage. There was tons of shots constantly recycled, especially the bad, "We're falling to the one side," or when the back control board blew out. If it had better lighting, maybe that could have saved the cheap nature of it. It was worse whenever you go from the moody looking Die Ranger footage to the bright colors of the MMPR cockpit. Ultimately, the cockpits are for aesthetics. They're not as important as the Megazord itself, but we are staring at them for every episode. When they're so boring, it just feels like the designers gave up. It's also the fault of the crew. There are times when you get that few seconds glimpse and go, wow, they actually took the time to change the logo graphics in the Dragonzord Battle Mode cockpit to have the Dragonzord coin and emblem on the panel, which we only ever got to see for a split second. Even though this is a kid show, come up with more dynamic shots. This is towards both Japanese and New Zealand crews. You guys can clearly do more without involving effects. Show off what the set builders did or help them improve. Like, okay, we're gonna mainly film the Rangers in this angle. I want to see lots of blinky lights here or a whole bunch of things that they can do during serious moments to help sell, oh my god, this is going bad. What are your thoughts on cockpits? Does it matter? We only buy the exteriors after all. What do you consider dumb designs? The chessboard from Mystic Force is something I see people not liking. I personally like to see it made as an official PR chessboard. New episodes Mondays. Next week, 10 Ways to Improve Turbo, a Power Rangers movie.